I'd always thought my life with Emily was something solid, like a house built on stone. We'd been together 12 years, married for 9, and our days flowed with a rhythm I never questioned. She was a nurse, kind-hearted and sharp-witted, with hazel eyes that crinkled when she laughed. I worked as a carpenter, shaping wood into things people could use: tables, chairs, shelves. My hands were rough, but Emily said they told a story. We lived in a small craftsman-style home in Portland, Oregon, with a porch swing where we'd sit on summer evenings, sipping iced tea and talking about nothing much. Our daughter, Lily, was 6, a whirlwind of giggles and curly hair. Everything felt right. But then, maybe 6 months ago, I started noticing things. Small things like cracks in a wall you don't see until they spider out. Emily began staying late at the hospital, saying they were short-staffed. She'd come home smelling faintly of antiseptic and something else, something musky I couldn't place. Her phone, once left carelessly on the counter, now lived in her pocket or bag, screen always tilted away. She'd laugh it off if I asked, saying it was just work stress or new privacy policies at the hospital. I believed her because doubting her felt like doubting the sun would rise. One night, though, the cracks widened. I'd finished a custom bookshelf for a client and came home early, hands still dusted with sawdust. The house was quiet. Lily was at her grandma's, and Emily wasn't due back for hours. I decided to surprise her with dinner, something simple like roasted chicken and potatoes. While rummaging in the pantry, I knocked over a box of cereal, and out spilled a folded note. It wasn't mine. The handwriting was loopy, unfamiliar. Asterisk, meet me at the usual spot, 8 p.m. Can't wait to see you again, E. Asterisk, my stomach twisted. Emily's shift ended at 7. I told myself it was nothing. A friend. A misunderstanding. But the musk in her hair whispered otherwise. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I watched. She came home at 9:30, cheeks flushed, claiming a patient had coded. Her eyes darted when I asked about her day, and she kissed me quick, too quick, before heading to shower. The note burned a hole in my pocket. I didn't sleep. The next week, I became a man I didn't recognize. Doubt gnawed at me, a termite in the foundation of our life. I started tracking her, nothing dramatic, just noting when she left, when she returned, how she acted. She'd always been warm, tactile, but now her touches felt rehearsed, like she was ticking a box. I hated myself for suspecting her, but that note, it wasn't a friend's. It was too intimate, too secretive. I decided to dig deeper. One morning, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand. She'd changed her passcode, used to be Lily's birthday 0618, but now it rejected me. My pulse hammered. I put it back before she noticed, but the seed was planted. That afternoon, I called a buddy, Mike, who'd done some PI work before going straight. He told me to start simple. Check her car, her routines. People get sloppy, he said. Look for the crumbs. Her car was a blue Honda Civic, always spotless, Emily's pride. I waited until she was at work and Lily was at school. Popping the trunk, I found nothing unusual. A spare tire, a first aid kit, her gym bag. But then, under the mat, I saw it. A receipt from a place called the Driftwood Inn, a boutique hotel an hour outside Portland. Dated 2 weeks ago, 8:47 p.m. A room charge, one night, $129. She told me she was at a staff meeting that evening. My chest tightened. I shoved the receipt in my wallet and drove to the hotel. The Driftwood was quaint, all cedar and glass, tucked off a winding road. The clerk, a young guy with a patchy beard, didn't recognize Emily's photo when I showed it, but he confirmed they didn't take names for cash payments. Couples come here for privacy, he said, smirking. I wanted to punch that smirk off his face, but I nodded and left. Privacy. The word echoed like a taunt. I couldn't unsee it now. The lie stitched into every moment. Emily's late nights weren't emergencies. They were escapes. I needed proof, something concrete to hold up against her excuses. Mike lent me a GPS tracker, a little black box I stuck under her car's wheel well. Felt dirty, invasive, but so did her secrets. For 3 days, I watched the app on my phone, a blinking dot mapping her life. Hospital, home, Lily's school, normal. Then, Friday night, the dot veered. She told me she was covering a double shift. I kissed her goodbye, said I'd handle Lily's bedtime. At 7:15, the dot stopped at the Driftwood Inn. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. I called my mom, asked her to watch Lily, and drove. The hour felt endless, trees blurring past. My mind a storm of what-ifs. When I pulled into the lot, her Civic was there, parked beside a silver Audi I didn't know. Room 12 had a light on, curtains drawn. I waited. At 8:42, the door opened. Emily stepped out, hair loose, laughing. Behind her was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe 40, with dark hair and a jawline that looked carved. He wore a tailored coat, too fancy for a nurse's salary to match. They didn't kiss, but his hand grazed her back, possessive. My throat burned. I snapped photos with my phone, blurry but clear enough. They got into his Audi and drove off. I followed. They stopped at a diner 10 miles away, a neon-lit hole in the wall. Through the window I saw them, her smiling, him leaning close. She never smiled like that with me anymore. I sat in my truck, gripping the wheel until my knuckles whitened. The man was Dr. Nathan Pierce, I learned later, a surgeon at her hospital. Google showed him at charity galas, always grinning, a golden boy. My wife's golden boy. I didn't confront her that night. Rage simmered, but I needed control, needed to understand how deep this went before I acted. Emily came home at midnight, humming, claiming exhaustion. I nodded, played the doting husband, even poured her wine. She didn't notice my silence, or maybe she didn't care. The photos sat heavy in my phone, a ticking bomb. The next day, I called in sick and dug into Nathan Pierce. Social media painted him as a saint, saving lives, charming donors. Married, too, to a blonde named Claire, a real estate agent with a perfect smile. They had no kids, just a sleek downtown condo and a life that screamed money. I wondered if Claire knew, if she smelled Emily on him the way I smelled him on her. I kept digging. Hospital records were locked, but ex-posts from staff hinted at rumors. Nathan liked nurses, plural. Emily wasn't the first. I needed more than photos. I needed them caught, exposed. Mike suggested a camera, small and wireless, but I couldn't plant it at the hotel, too risky. Instead, I tracked her again. Tuesday, the dot hit the Driftwood. I drove, parked a block away, and waited. This time, I saw them arrive together, his hand on her thigh as they walked in. I recorded it, 30 seconds of betrayal etched in pixels. Back home, I started planning. Revenge wasn't enough. It had to sting to ruin. Nathan had a reputation. Emily had our life. I'd take both. I researched Claire Pierce, found her email on a listing site. I drafted a message, anonymous, with the video attached. Asterisk, your husband's busy at the Driftwood. Thought you'd want to know. Asterisk, I didn't send it yet. Timing mattered. A week later, I struck. Emily was working late again, and the tracker confirmed the Driftwood. I sent Claire the email from a burner account, then watched the fallout unfold. By morning, X was buzzing. Claire had posted a cryptic rant about trust and trash. No names, but the timing fit. Nathan's pristine image cracked. Hospital gossip amplified it. Emily came home pale, distracted, muttering about drama at work. I smiled and asked nothing. She didn't suspect me, but Nathan did. He called her. I heard his voice through the wall, tense, asking who knew. She denied everything, but the seed was planted. I wasn't done. This was just the beginning. Emily's unease grew like mold in the corners of our home. She paced more, checked her phone constantly, and snapped at Lily over spilled juice. Things she'd never done before. I kept my mask on, playing the steady husband, asking gentle questions about her day. She'd mutter about hospital politics, her voice tight, and I'd nod, hiding the satisfaction curling in my gut. Claire's ex-post had lit a fuse, and Nathan's perfect world was smoldering. I'd seen his Audi at the hotel less often through the tracker, but Emily still slipped away, her lies thinner each time. I needed to escalate. Claire's reaction was a start, but it was too vague, deniable. I wanted them cornered, their secrets flayed open. I dug deeper into Nathan. His public life was polished, but every man has shadows. A friend from my carpentry days, Greg, worked IT at the hospital. Over beers, I asked a favor, no details, just a hunch. He grumbled but agreed to peek at Nathan's work emails. 2 days later, he called. "Man, this guy's sloppy," Greg said. "He's got a burner account linked to his work laptop. Messages to an E. Not medical stuff either. Real personal." Greg sent me screenshots. The emails were careful, no names, but the tone matched that note from the cereal box. Yearning, secretive. One line stuck. Asterisk. "Can't stop thinking about the lake last month." Asterisk. The driftwood was near Lake Oswego. It wasn't proof for a court, but it was fuel for me. I thanked Greg, kept it quiet, and started crafting the next move. Nathan's marriage was fraying. Claire's posts hinted at fights, but Emily still thought she was safe. She wasn't. I bought a cheap burner phone and texted Nathan from it, using a number spoofing app to mimic Claire's. Asterisk. "I know about her. Meet me at the diner tomorrow, 7 p.m., or I tell everyone." Asterisk. I watched the tracker that night. Emily went to the driftwood alone, waited an hour, then left. Nathan didn't show. He was rattled, though. I pictured him staring at that text, sweat beading on that chiseled jaw. The diner meeting was a feint, but it worked. Nathan called Emily. I heard her whispering in the bathroom, voice sharp with panic. "Claire knows something," she hissed. "We need to be careful." I stood outside the door, silent, my pulse a drumbeat. She didn't suspect me, didn't see the strings I was pulling. The next day, I sent Claire another email, this time with a photo. The one of Nathan's hand on Emily's back at the driftwood. Asterisk. He's not just busy. He's with her. Asterisk. I signed it. Asterisk. A friend. Asterisk. Claire didn't waste time. That evening, her ex account erupted, not cryptic anymore. She named Nathan, called him a liar, a cheat, tagged the hospital. Photos followed, not mine, but older ones of him with other women, nurses from years past. The golden boy's halo shattered. By morning, the hospital's PR team was scrambling. Ex-posts from staff confirmed a suspension pending investigation. Emily came home late, eyes red, claiming a rough shift. I poured her tea, asked if she was okay. She nodded, brittle, and I smiled inside. Nathan's ruin was sweet, but Emily's turn was coming. I needed her to feel it. Not just guilt, but loss. I started small. She loved her garden, roses she'd tended for years. One night, while she slept, I poured salt into the soil, a slow poison. By week's end, the petals browned, drooped. She cried over them, confused, and I shrugged, said maybe it was the weather. Her confusion fed me. I wasn't done with her roses or her. Emily's world tilted faster. Nathan's suspension hit her hard. She stopped humming, stopped smiling. She'd check her phone, frown, then shove it away. I knew why. His texts had dried up. Claire's public storm had caged him, and he was cutting ties to save himself. I tracked her car, fewer trips to the driftwood, more aimless drives. She was unraveling, and I tightened the screws. I leaked more. Using the burner, I sent tips to a local blogger. Anonymous, untraceable. Dates, times, the driftwood's name, all tied to Nathan and a nurse. The post went up Friday, vague but damning. Hospital staff connected dots. Whispers reached Emily. Saturday, she came home shaken. Said a coworker asked if she'd heard the rumors. "They think it's me," she whispered, testing me. I feigned shock, squeezed her hand. "That's crazy, Em. You'd never—" She looked away, and I knew she was drowning. The garden was dead now, blackened stems where roses once bloomed. She blamed pests, spent hours digging, but nothing grew. I'd salted more than the soil. I'd salted her trust in herself. Lily noticed too, asking why Mommy was sad. I hugged her, said grown-ups get tired sometimes. Emily overheard, flinched, and I savored it. Her sanctuary was gone, and she didn't know I'd taken it. I wanted her to see herself. Not the nurse, the wife, but the liar. I printed the photos. Nathan's hand on her, her laugh at the diner, and slipped them into her work bag, tucked in a patient file she'd bring home. Monday, she found them. I was in the garage, sanding a chair, when she stormed in, face white, holding the pictures. "Where did these come from?" she demanded. I played dumb, wide-eyed. "What are those, Em?" She stammered, said someone at work must have planted them. A prank. I nodded, let her spin her web. She didn't sleep that night. I heard her pacing, muttering. Tuesday, she called in sick, stayed in bed, curtains drawn. I brought her soup, sat by her, asked what was wrong. "Just tired," she lied. I pressed, gentle, concerned, until she snapped, "Leave me alone." Lily heard, cried, and Emily sobbed harder. The house felt like a tomb, and I was its quiet architect. Nathan's career was ashes now. Lawsuits from past flings piled on. Claire filed for divorce. Emily knew, I could tell, but she didn't confess. She clung to her mask, but it was slipping. I upped the stakes. I mailed the photos to her parents and signed, no note. Her mom called Wednesday, voice trembling, asking what was happening. Emily hung up, stared at me wild-eyed. "Someone's after me," she said. I hugged her, whispered, "We'll figure it out." She didn't feel my cold glee. Her parents arrived Thursday unannounced, worried. Her dad, a gruff retired cop, held the photos, demanded answers. Emily crumbled, said it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Her mom cried, asked why she'd hurt me, hurt Lily. I stayed silent, let them tear into her. She begged me to back her up, eyes pleading. "Tell them it's not true," she said. I looked at her, calm, and said, "I don't know what's true anymore, Em." Her dad glared. Her mom left the room. Emily broke, sobbing, and I watched, unmoved. That night, she packed a bag, said she needed space, went to a friend's. Lily asked where Mommy went. I said she'd be back soon. I didn't care if she returned. Her life was rubble now. Nathan's was gone, her family's trust shattered, her garden dead. But I wasn't finished. The cruelest cut waited, patient and sharp, for the perfect moment. Emily's absence left the house eerily still. Lily's questions, "When's Mommy coming home?" echoed through the rooms, and I answered with vague promises. My voice steady despite the storm inside. I didn't miss Emily's presence. Not the way I once might have. What I missed was the illusion, the life I'd believed in before the note, the receipt, the photos. Now, with her gone, I had space to sharpen the blade of my plan. She thought she'd escaped the worst by running to her friends. She hadn't. I kept tabs on her through the tracker, still stuck to her car, unnoticed. She'd moved to Sarah's place, a coworker who'd always been too nosy for my liking. The dot lingered there, then darted to the hospital, then back. No driftwood, no Nathan. He'd vanished from her orbit, likely licking his wounds in some lawyer's office as his divorce and lawsuits piled up. Good. His ruin was complete, but Emily's was only half finished. I wanted her to taste every drop of what she'd poured into me. I started with her job. She loved nursing, called it her calling. I take that too. Using the burner, I emailed the hospital's HR anonymously, attaching the blogger's post and a vague note. Asterisk, check your staff. This one's tied to Pierce. Asterisk, no proof linked her directly, but rumors were enough in a place like that. By Friday, Emily called me, voice shaking. "They're investigating me," she said. "Some complaint. I might lose my license." I feigned shock, offered sympathy. "That's awful, Em. How could this happen?" She didn't answer, just hung up. I smiled at the phone. Lily's school photos came that day, her gap-toothed grin beaming. I mailed one to Emily's parents with a note. Asterisk, she misses her mom. Tell Emily to call her. Asterisk, her dad replied, Kurt. Asterisk, she's a mess. Fix this. Asterisk, I didn't respond. Let them stew. The hospital moved fast. By Monday, Emily was on leave, temporary, they said. Pending review. She texted me, frantic. Asterisk, I don't know who's doing this. Help me. Asterisk, I didn't reply. Let her beg. The blogger picked up the scent again. New post. Asterisk, Pierce's mystery nurse on the ropes. Hospital tight-lipped. Asterisk X lit up, local speculating. Emily's name surfaced in a few replies. Not mine. Just whispers from her world. She'd see it soon enough. Her friend Sarah kicked her out that week. Too much drama, I guessed. The tracker showed Emily at a cheap motel off I-5, the kind with flickering signs and stained carpets. I drove by once, saw her Civic parked crooked, her silhouette in a window. She looked small, diminished. I didn't feel pity, only a cold satisfaction. Her roses were dead, her family distant, her job teetering. Now her pride was next. I sent the photos to her coworkers, not all, just a few key gossips. No note, just the images, her and Nathan, unmistakable. Tuesday she called sobbing. Everyone knows, she said. They're looking at me like I'm trash. I stayed quiet, then said, maybe you should come home. She hesitated, agreed. I didn't want her back for love. I wanted her close for the endgame. She arrived Wednesday, eyes sunken, bags slung over her shoulder. Lily ran to her, and Emily hugged her tight, tears spilling. I watched, detached. We need to talk, she said later, voice low. I nodded. Let her sit. Let her think she could salvage something. She didn't know the trap was already sprung. That night, she broke. We sat at the kitchen table, Lily asleep upstairs. Emily's hands trembled around a mug of tea I'd made, bitter, like her mood. I messed up, she started, staring at the wood grain. Nathan, it wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. She didn't look at me, didn't see the ice in my eyes. He listened, made me feel seen. You were always so steady. I needed more. I let her talk, spill her excuses. How it started with coffee grew to late nights, then the driftwood. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. I love you still. Her voice cracked, but I heard the lie. She loved the thrill, not me. I leaned back, calm. How long? I asked. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months of smiles, dinners, lies while I built her shelves and raised our girl. Why tell me now? I said. She fidgeted. Because it's over. He's gone, and I'm losing everything. I want us to fix this, like it was a chair with a wobbly leg. I stood, poured more tea, let her stew. I need time, I said. She nodded, relieved, thinking she'd cracked my shell. She hadn't. I'd recorded it, her confession, on a tiny device Mike lent me, hidden in a drawer. Insurance, he'd called it. I didn't need it for a divorce. Oregon's no-fault laws didn't care. I needed it for her soul. I waited until she slept, then uploaded it to a private cloud. The final piece was ready. Thursday, I struck. Emily was upstairs, napping, exhausted from her own wreckage. I took the recording, edited it down to the rawest parts. Asterisk Nathan, 8 months. I needed more. Asterisk I burned it onto a CD, old school, untraceable, and mailed copies. One to her parents, one to Sarah, one to the hospital board. The last went to Nathan's lawyer, labeled asterisk, for Claire. Asterisk no notes, just her voice, naked and damning. Friday, the calls started. Her mom first, screaming through the phone. Emily locked herself in the bathroom, sobbing. Sarah next, icy, saying she was done. The hospital emailed, leave extended, investigation deepened. Emily emerged, wild-eyed, clutching her phone. What's happening? She yelled. I shrugged. Sounds like the truth caught up. She stared, dawning horror in her eyes. You? She whispered. I didn't answer, just watched her crumble. She left again that night, no bag this time, just her keys. The tracker showed her driving motel, then nowhere, circling Portland's edges. I didn't follow. Lily asked again, and I said, Mommy's figuring things out. Saturday, her dad showed up, red-faced, demanding I stop. She's my daughter, he growled. She was my wife, I said. He left, defeated. Emily didn't come back. The tracker died a week later, battery drained. Last ping at a gas station near Salem. Her nursing license was revoked, ethics violation they called it, thanks to the CD. Her parents cut her off. Sarah spread the recording among friends. Nathan settled with Claire, lost his condo, faded into obscurity. X forgot them both eventually, chasing new scandals. Lily and I stayed in the house. I rebuilt the garden. Not roses, but hardy ferns, things that thrive in shadow. She asked less about Emily as months passed, and I filled the gaps with stories, crafts, quiet nights. Emily sent a letter once. Apologies, please, no return address. I burned it unread. I'd taken everything. Her love, her pride, her roots, and left her a ghost. Revenge wasn't loud or fast. It was slow, deliberate, a carving knife through her life. I didn't feel triumph, just a hollow peace. The house stood firm, Lily grew, and I kept building tables, chairs, a future. Emily's shadow faded, and I let it.